So these variables, when you enter into a research, they'll talk about the variables. Constant talk about the variables. The variable is a very important term. It is a normal English term. Okay. So variable is nothing but which varies according to the influences and according to the conditions. Depending upon the characters also, it gets varies. For example, variable, you can say age is one variable and gender is one variable. So like this, which is very constantly varying its characteristics, its conditions, and also its construction as well as the concept. That is why it is called as a variable. Normal mathematical meaning of a variable. Okay. So here the variables are classified into two major terms. One is independent variable and another one is dependent variable. The independent variables is, in other words, they are called as interventions nowadays. That is which intervene into the characteristics of a dependent variable. So the very word dependent is a normal English term which depends upon the entire situation. For example, age of a person is constantly varying, right? Each and every day, age of a person is varying. So age of a person varies according to the time. So time is influencing the age. So like this, for if you take any disease, as we can go back to our own diabetic example. So fasting sugar varies according to the treatment that is given to the patients. Like if they are constantly practicing yoga, constantly observing the diet, their fasting sugar level is always varying. That is why they are called as a dependent variable. So depending upon their treatment, depending upon the diet, the values differs. It is not constant. But whereas independent means the word very independent is a typical English word which cannot be and which is not influenced by any conditions. For example, a treatment, the treatment, the yoga is considered to be one of the therapy, and you can take Ayurveda, you can take Varma. See, this fasting sugar cannot influence yoga, right? Similarly, H1ABC cannot influence Varma. Fasting sugar cannot influence diet. Okay. But those are all the treatments. Their methodology and everything is very constant. That may have a major influence on the dependent variables. That is why they are called as independent and dependent variables. Are you all following with me what I am trying to say about independent and dependent variable? Because these are all two important terms that you have to understand.
Independent variable means doctor, madam. Dependent variable means patient, and intervention variable means diseases.
No, not like that. Intervention is the methodology, Here, independent is not a doctor. It's not about.
Means, for example, madam, I am saying.
The not doctor. The treatment the doctor is giving is called as independent. You understand? The intervention is the normal English word which intervenes into the diseases, which has an influence over the diseases. The methodology, doctor means whether it is allopathic treatment, Ayurvedic treatment, that methodology, that is called as an intervention, that is called as an independent variable. Are you all clear with Rajeshwari ji? You something?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, you said fasting sugar cannot influence yoga. Okay.
Yeah.
So which one is independent, which is dependent? You said, ma'am. I didn't get that.
Yoga is independent. Fasting sugar is dependent, right? But fasting sugar cannot influence yoga, but yoga can influence fasting sugar. You understand? You agree with me or not? If they have a constant practice of the package, naturally their fasting sugar will differ. Either it will reduce or it will be normal. But if they don't practice yoga, if they don't follow dietary pattern, means naturally their fasting sugar will increase. So that fasting sugar is a dependent variable, which is influenced by its interventions or by the independent variables. Are you able to understand, madam?
Yes, now I got it, ma'am.
Okay. Because this is very important. That's why I'm repeatedly telling. Unless you know the meaning of these two, the next slides will be very difficult for you to follow. So here they go in detail. What is independent variable? And they have a little discussion, little more meaning about what is independent variable. So independent variable is a variable that affects a dependent variable. That is what I have already told you. And it can manipulate or control it. That is the thing. See, as we have told, yoga can control hypertension, yoga can control fasting sugar, yoga can control H1ABC, right? So that is that independent variable is a power, or it can manipulate the dependent variable. That is a very important term. But dependent variable cannot manipulate or control the independent variable. Okay. So you can have this two examples in your mind: yoga with the diseases. If you keep yoga and the diseases, yoga is an independent variable and the diseases are dependent variables. So in the same thing in yoga, independent variable may be yogic training methods. So any method, classical method you can follow, or you can follow KYM method, you can follow Tai Chi style. Any style is called as an independent only, irrespective of the style, that methodology that we are applying on the people. That methodology designed by us is called as an intervention, that is an independent variable. So what are all the types of independent variable? So any treatment, as we have already told, any treatment, any training methodology is called as an independent variable. And then attribute that cannot be altered. Okay, that cannot be altered is called as an, here they have put as age cannot be altered, but this is a relative term, like that. I think age you can ignore the example of age, because age is always altered with time. So it will become a controversial thing. But you can take sex. If a person, I am telling a literal meaning. No, nowadays they go for some operation. I am not into that controversy. So, for example, if a female cannot be altered with any other training or any other thing. If a male means male cannot be altered with any other interventions. So, like this, they have given you few examples. And then I think you all can say some example for dependent and independent variable. Other than yoga, so that I can understand whether you are in the right track or not, or I am in the right track of explaining you people.
Ma'am, I have a previous example written. I just want to clarify whether this works with. So there are 100 students, ma'am. 50 students we allow to sleep well, 50 students we keep awake. The sleep is the variable which is dependent, and test performance, sorry ma'am, sleep is the variable which is independent and test performance is dependent. Is that right, ma'am?
Sleep is not a methodology, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So if you want to say that sleep cannot control any activity also, am I right or not? So if you say something is independent, there should be a proper planned methodology for it. And another thing is that it should have an influence over the another variable. It should be capable of manipulating the another variable. But sleep does not have that much quality to manipulate another variable, right? So if we sleep well, maybe we are fresh on the whole day. But do you think that it can influence the performance to that extent?
How about sun and plants, ma'am?
Yeah, that is really good example. You can take sun and plants. Okay. So that is really a good example. Hope everybody is clear with independent. Karthik ji, are you okay with independent variable?
Yes, madam. Yes, madam.
Fine. So when it
height
comes
depends
to
upon age, is that is dependent, madam.
which one?
Height that depends upon age, madam. Age and
Yeah.
sex are the independent variable.
Yeah, exactly. That
Right,
also correct. And when it comes to dependent variable, this is also known as confounding variable, because it is not independent. Okay, it is manipulated, controlled by another variable. Okay, that is why they are calling saying that it is a confounding variable. And dependent variable is a variable that is affected by the independent variable, and it is measured to change naturally. As our readings, when they have a constant practice, or when they don't practice also, the readings will not be constant, it keep on be changing. So what are the types of dependent variable? Naturally, intervening fatigue is an dependent variable. If you work more, naturally you get tired, right? And as Rajeshwari ji said, if you don't sleep properly, you become tired. So here, fatigue is considered to be the dependent variable. Then it is actually always it is indirect and it is moderating. It can be influenced by any of the conditions, including socio-economic factors. Okay, so dependent variable is always influenced by uh, independent variable. So any independent variable, even as Rajeshwar ji said, a sun and the plant, can be independent. It is influenced by the nature. Similarly, any socio-economic factors also you can take it as an example. So another is just for make you people understand a simple graphical representation. So what is the types of variable? That is the independent variable, the one thing that you change, the limit to the only one. It is an experiment. For example, liquid used to water the plant. What Rajeshwari ji said, the same example that we have put. And here the dependent variable is that the change that happened because of the independent variable. So when you pour water, naturally your plants are really getting healthy. So what is a controlling variable which controls? We have already told independent variable can control dependent variable. Similarly, what is controlled variable over here? Everything you want to remain constant and unchanging. That is called as a controlled variable. Nothing but a type of plant part like this we can give as an example for these things. So as far as variable is concerned, only these things are okay. Any doubt on the variable, or if no doubt, we can move on to hypothesis. Are you all in the class?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any doubt, or you want me to repeat the variables, or shall we move on to hypothesis?
It takes little time to sync, ma'am, actually. Ma'am, how about rain and crops, ma'am?
Yeah, naturally, ma. Any nature, that's what I said. Socio-economic factors you can take and you can have a better comparison over it. No doubt about it. So instead of you go on to socio-economic factors and the whatever the nature, you can better take the treatment oriented because you are all going to be therapists. You can think of any of the uh, therapeutical plan, like you can take if you have any allied like acupressure, or if you are familiar with Ayurvedic, if you have could have a comparison with all these things, it will be really better understanding for you, I feel. No? Even yoga, see, when I have told you, this comes under the third chapter. So designing our methodology is very much important, right? When designing our methodology, we'll be designing our training schedule. So whether first initially for any person, any patients for that matter, we cannot start with 1 hour, right? So we have to start initially, suggestible to start with 40 minutes. And then slowly we will go on increasing our timing and to 50 minutes, and then another schedule to 60 minutes. For example, so if your treatment is for 6 months, means 2 months, 40 minutes will be giving, and another next 2 months, 50 minutes, and then to 60 minutes. So like this, you will formulate a training schedule. In other words, it's a training methodology. So like this, if you take any example into you, so it will be really helpful for you to understand what is dependent and what is independent. Okay.
Ma'am, suppose I take weight loss and Surya Namaskara, hypothetically, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I do 6 or 8 sets of Surya Namaskara on a set of people, and then dependent variable is the weight loss, independent is the Surya Namaskaras.
Exactly.
How can I this controlled? I'm not understanding, ma'am. Can you please help understand with this Surya Namaskar example what will be controlled in that? How do I apply that?
See, actually, controlled variable is nothing but the plan that is used. We see in Surya Namaskara, you will be using a style, asanas list, and how you are using it as a competitive style or a normal style, like that we will be using, right? So literally, if you a controlled variable is nothing but everything that remained really constant without any change, they say. So here in actually in really in our therapy, we will have a dependent and independent only. Controlled will come only in, as I have told you, not in the therapeutic research. Controlled won't come over here. Controlled will come like in literature research or history research, archaeology research, like that come, because what we have in therapeutic area, we have dependent and independent only. So independent is the one that is going to influence the dependent one, and dependent is the one that is getting manipulated because of the treatment that is observed by the patient. Okay. So here in generally in therapeutic area, controlled variable will not come. It is for the very example itself, the type of the plant that is used, the pot size. These things are non-living things, like which cannot be controlled with a human being. Like, is it okay? Are you able to
Yeah.
follow with me?
Yeah. Got it.
And if you want me to revise once again, we will go into it. All will move on to hypothesis. It is your decision.
I will just go through, and if I have question, I'll ask tomorrow, ma'am.
Okay. What about
Field
others?
work, so I understood, ma'am.
What about
Same.
others?
Same.
So shall we proceed to hypothesis?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah. So hypothesis is a very important term in any research. As I have already told you, it is nothing but a very intelligent guess. So the very word itself, they are very clear. It should be an intelligent guess. There should not be any abnormal guess over it, and they should be really practically achievable. That's why they say it's a principal instrument. Yes, in any research, hypothesis is a very much important. Okay. So what is hypothesis? For example, as the example of Mrs. Rajeshwari used, Surya Namaskara, because of Surya Namaskara, the weight is going to be reduced, or BMI is going to be balanced. BMI is going to be reduced to the normal level. So this is practically possible only when the span is very important. Whenever you take a research, the span we have to assure, whether it is 6 months, 3 months. Like this, we used to mention the span. For example, if a person is of maybe a person who's with 150, 160 height, and if his weight is like 75 kg, you can expect to reduce the weight. The healthy weight loss is maximum 1.5 to 2.5 kg per month, right? So when our treatment span is 3 months, how much weight reduction is possible practically? Maybe 7 kilo. Okay, if it is a healthy weight loss, it should be 7 kg only. If you give weight, diet, as well as the rapid style of Surya Namaskara, maximum we can lose only 7 kg in 3 months. Okay, beyond if we lose, there is something problem in what we are treating them, right? So as it is shown in the advertisement and all, suddenly a person, 75 kg person cannot turn to 55 kg or maybe 50 kg, right? So possibly he may lose around 7 kg, the maximum. So he may reach out to 68 kg. This is practically possible. So our hypothesis is this should be the real guess, because of Surya Namaskara, a person weight can be reduced to the optimum level. What is the optimum level? Depending upon the weight, it should be parallel to his height. The weight should match, right? For example, in other cases, you may take if a person weight is 110 kg, right? We have seen some abnormal people, 120 kg. But if their height is only 160, can you make them normal within 3 months? Why?
160. Ma'am, 160 kgs.
120 kg.
120.
Height is
Difficult.
160 centimeter. Can you make them normal within 3 months?
No, ma'am.
No,
Yeah.
ma'am.
So that sort of assurance we should not give. That is why they say it's a principal instrument and this is a guiding light. So which is practically possible only, we have to guess. And this is basis for the action. These words are very important, like, okay. And this is a powerful tool. So hypothesis is nothing but it is derived from a two word, hype and thesis, which means fixing an agent for the research and report of the research work respectively. So, in other words, in a hypothesis, it is nothing but an intelligent guess and a hunch, a preposition, these are all the decorative words for hypothesis. The exact meaning is nothing but an intelligent guess. So, it is agreed that it is an imaginative data, know about it, and you are going to give a predictive statement. The predictive statement is not the one unimaginable assurance or which is things are not practically possible. And sorry to compare, you can, this is election time, generally politicians used to give the assurance which is practically not going to be executed after election, right? Such a sort of assurance you cannot give it in the research. The hypothesis means your predictive statement, you have to execute it, and the research report you have to prove that you have because I have told you now, in result and discussion you will be writing the hypothesis that is guessed, that is already mentioned, is proven in this point, proven in this research. Like this, you have to present a statement. So that is why they say it's a predictive statement and it's a provisional formulation. So the very word, provisional formulations mean you are assuming what is going to be achieved. So practical thing alone be given over there. Then tentative generalization and temporary statement. So it is temporary statement. It has to be made permanent at the time of filing the research. So these things are very important. Like we cannot be giving any false assurance. Like that is why they say all these things. So what are all the characteristics of hypothesis? So you should be capable of being tested. Whatever you guess, whatever you state, whatever you predict, it has to be capable of being tested. For example, as Rajeshwari ji's example, she says that weight could be reduced after 3 months because of Surya Namaskara. Naturally, it will be tested, right? After 3 months, the weight of the person, pre-test will be made. For example, the pre-test, if the person weight is 75 kg, and the posted after 3 months, it should have been 68 kg. A healthy weight loss of like 7 kgs, right? So it has to be tested. And so where the test is not possible, hypothesis cannot be applied. For example, you can take one funny example, right? If you use any cream, like it is coming in the advertisement, after 3 months you will shine like Miss India or something like that. Is these things are hypothesis? These things are not hypothesis, simply a false marketing assurance. So those things cannot be tested. After 3 months, if we happen to be with the same color on same face, what will they say? They'll give show us on the advertisement one small star, conditions apply. So those within the conditions, we may not fall in that particular category. So just for making you people understand, I'm telling this. So whatever in hypothesis that we state, it has to be tested, the result should be proved. And state the relationship between the variables. Like if you practice Surya Namaskara, the weight will be reduced. So like this, you have to give the relationship between the variables. That is a real hypothesis. And then it is subjected to statistical treatment. See, just an imaginative guess alone is not accepted. You have to prove it with the data. So you take pre-data, you take the mean out of it, you take post-data, you take the mean out of it. And with this, you are going to do the t-test as well as with ANOVA or ANCOVA, whatever the method suggested by the university, you are going to prove the results. That statistical method is really important for hypothesis. So what are all the advantages of hypothesis? If there is no hypothesis means the research will not be in a proper manner, right? Without any guess, if you start any research, if you keep on be doing work, it is just traveling without a aim. So that is what the first thing is, that it gives you the direction. See, unless otherwise you have an intelligent guess, your research may not be moved in the right direction. And the another one is keep the study within the boundaries. So as I have already told you, boundaries are very much important for any research. For example, Rajeshwari ji said, because of Surya Namaskara, the weight will be reduced. So in when it is going to be the real research, you have to mention your age groups, because as we have already told, entire population without any discrimination, you may take a yoga class, but you cannot do a research with, because it will vary from person to person. For example, Surya Namaskara can be given in a rapid style to a teenage person. But when it comes to 50 or 60, even above 40, you cannot give it in a competitive style, right? You have to make them a little slow, a little flexible movement. You have to wait for them. You can ask a teenage boy to do 72 Surya Namaskara. But when it comes to 50 years, doing in the first class, make them do 12 itself is a big deal, right? And similarly, the gender plays a major role. So whether it is male or a female, girls or a boys. So depending upon that, you have to confine, you have to define the boundaries. And the age group maximum 10 years only we will be taking it, right? For example, from 18 to 28, 14 to 24, 40 to 50. Like this 10 years only we are allowed to take. Too much of age difference may not match. The same style you cannot, you are taking a group class, right? Even in your yoga studio, you cannot give a same list of asanas to all, right? You have to give a modification depending upon the gender problem and the age. So that is why they say it bounds. See, any hypothesis is keeping your study bound, because in hypothesis, you will be telling you are decided to take this much age group only, this gender only, whether it is female or a male, you have to mention over there. So this is the one. That is why they say hypothesis is a guiding light. So when you are giving the hypothesis, you will mention all these things, and then it binds between known and the unknown. Yes, always research is moving from unknown to known. So whether you don't know something, you are into the research that is very vague, that could not be proved initially. Then slowly with your data, with your treatment, you are making it known, and you are creating a relationship, and finally you are giving the results. That is why it is telling that what is known, what is unknown will be clearly known to us with the help of hypothesis. Then it binds between the past and the future. Naturally, it's a predictive statement, means it is going to tell what will be happening in the future. That is like after your treatment period, what would be the results. So what are all the limitations of hypothesis? In other words, what is the little drawbacks that because of hypothesis? It should not be used in a mechanical fashions. Like that is what I am telling. It is only it should be an intelligent guess. Any abnormal or an aesthetic sense or false assurance, like this for fantasy purpose, for phrasing, for just keeping the sentence in an attractive way, we are not supposed to add anything, and not based on correct evidences. You are, while giving the hypothesis, we do not have any evidence. It is only an intelligent guess, like, no, that time we don't have any evidences. Few researchers, why they use here as correct evidences, this means because some researchers, because of this hypothesis, if they have not planned properly, it resulted in some failures also. That's why they say correct evidence at the time of planning, they may not be in a position to give a correct evidence. That may lead to a failure of the research. So here comes the very important portion, alternate types of the hypothesis. Are you all okay with the class? Because type of the hypothesis is very important and you need to have a more concentration. Are you all okay with this? Or do you feel we are stuffing more?
No, ma'am, we are okay.
Shall I proceed with the class?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Fine.
Yes, ma'am.
So first category is nothing but alternative hypothesis. So it's a normal English word, alternative hypothesis. For example, significant differences are there on fitness between yogic practitioners and non-yogic practitioners. Alternative hypothesis is two types. So here they compare, they compare between the person who are practicing the yoga and who are not practicing the yoga. Naturally, person who is practicing the yoga will be with fitness, and who are not practicing the yoga will not be with this. So this is what is alternative they are giving. If you do this, the result will be. If you don't do this, the result will be. So this is called as an alternative hypothesis. So alternative directional hypothesis, the another category. For example, yogic practitioners are superior to non-yogic practitioners on fitness. So it is directional hypothesis. So it is telling how it is compared, not only a simple comparison. It says how great it is. Like it is comparing with the qualities. That is why it is called as directional hypothesis. Then alternative non-directional hypothesis. The example again is yogic practitioner and non-yogic practitioner differ significantly on fitness. Simply stating, there will be a difference between the both. They neither say it is good nor say it is bad like. So it is an understood. They don't say anything. Whether if you do yoga, you will be better. If you don't do yoga, you won't be better. They are not discussing about it. This is another type of hypothesis which is not touching any attribute to the particular point. And the second thing is that hypothesis in question form. Generally, in research, they don't allow hypothesis in question form. When you are writing a hypothesis in your research, they won't allow us in a question form. When a hypothesis is stated in a question form, it is hypothesis. For example, are yogic practitioner fitter than non-yogic practitioner? For example, you can take Rajeshwari Madam example. Okay. If you practice Surya Namaskara, will there be a variation in your weight? This sort of hypothesis you cannot put in your research. If you put in a research, will your guide allow you? Without knowing that why you are coming for a research, they'll ask us, right? So like this, these are things for knowledge purpose. These questionable hypotheses are not allowed in the research. And I think someone questioned what is null hypothesis, right? I think she's not there in the class.
Gunjan, ma'am, Gunjan.
Yeah. This is null hypothesis. When a hypothesis
Less than
state,
0.05 will be null hypothesis.
yeah. That is what, when you couldn't prove your result, when your result doesn't match the statistical table, it is called as a null hypothesis. These things happens. But if you get a null hypothesis, doesn't mean that your research is failure. It's another way of expressing the results, okay? But null hypothesis happens in many research even nowadays. As I told you, for example, in any, you can take my research, dysmenorrhea, the biomarker is the progesterone. So influencing progesterone within 12 weeks or 3 months or 6 months is very tough. See, any hormonal influence can happen only in a little long span, right? So if a result doesn't match with the table, statistical table, so it is only matching the statistical table, they are calling as null hypothesis. It doesn't mean that our treatment has not worked out. I have already first class, I have told you, there is one research paper given by a gynecologist where she has treated a patient, same for dysmenorrhea, there's a painful menstruation. And because of her medication, there is no difference. I mean, statistically, she could not prove a difference in the progesterone level. But dysmenorrhea, the painful menstruation, has resolved by her. So like this. So research is in a way success only, but null hypothesis existed with progesterone. Okay. So negative, they couldn't prove the result according to the statistical table. That is why they are saying. They never say it is the research is a failure. So no significant difference on fitness. So the second example is very important. Generally, we used to, when our result is better, we will be telling there is a significant difference between the a treatment method, and the because of the treatment, pre and the post has got a very significant difference than the pre value. Like this, we used to write. But when there is no difference, naturally we will say no significant value. For example, if your result, as Karthik ji said, if it is lesser than 0.05, or if it is simple zero, you couldn't prove the result statistically, naturally we will be mentioning there is no significant difference in the pre-test and the post-test. That is only we will mention. We will never say there is no significant difference in our treatment. Okay. Because one biomarker only statistically we cannot prove, because our subject would be around 30 members, 40 members, 50 members. So if you take an individual data, we are taking only the average, right? We are taking only the standard deviations. We are making a group analysis. So in that we couldn't get a data. But if you analyze individual data, pre and post, if you analyze, there may be a huge difference. Few people, na, for out of 30, 20 may be having a wonderful difference, and 5 may be having the same one, no difference. Either it is reduced or increased. 5 may get a negative also. Because the negative is because not because of our treatment, because of the limitations, the boundaries that we have already seen. See, diet we can only give. We cannot be going behind the patients. So like this, for example, if the progesterone need to be under control, naturally, your cholesterol level, your HDL level should be in the normal category, right? And your lipoprotein should be under control, for which you need to follow a diet. If the patient, despite our diet list, if the patient is not following, and if the for the few patients if it becomes negative, can we say that our practice is bad? Any answer? I'm questioning G, are you sleeping in the class?
No, ma'am.
Yeah. So that is why null hypothesis is nothing but you are telling statistically it is not significant. It doesn't mean that our treatment is wrong. So make that point very clear. Okay. This is the difference between null hypothesis and the failure treatment. Generally, people confuse null hypothesis means they say that, oh, failure in the treatment. No, it is not failure in the treatment. Statistically, we could not prove our result. That is the only thing. And another thing is universal hypothesis. When a hypothesis is accepted, same in the whole universe, it is called as universal hypothesis. That is, the example is people who do yoga would be healthier. Okay, it's a generalized statement. That is why it is called as universal hypothesis. And another one is nothing but essential hypothesis. When a hypothesis is accepted at present, it is existential hypothesis. Okay, so I think it is so women who do yoga is healthier. So these are all actually the practical things are only alternative hypothesis and the null hypothesis. That is very important one. And how do you get the source? Where from you get all these things? So source is nothing but we are getting it from the history, the past analysis, nothing but, and then from the analysis comparison, you are getting it, and you are taking it from many studies. Before giving the hypothesis, you have to study the literature review. Unless you study the literature review, it is very tough to give the hypothesis. And then is the personal experience. So without literature study also, generally many yoga experts are very good in telling whether the things could be practically possible or not. That's why they say personal experience and value orientation of the culture. Naturally, these certain things comes out of experience, no? So traditional yoga therapist, they may not know our research concept, but the treatment would be really good, right? They can say, even, no, I'm not, they can treat the patient better than what we are doing with the science knowledge also, because they may not be in a position to express in the style that we need, but they would be really good in their treatment. So this is what about the hypothesis. So any questions that you wish to know about a hypothesis, you may ask now.
Ma'am,
Yeah,
the first one, alternative hypothesis, can you explain it to me again?
yeah, sure. So alternative hypothesis is nothing but you are giving a choice. Okay. If you do some activity, the result would be that. For example, if every day you study, naturally you will clear the NET exam with a very high score. And if you don't do something, the result would be like this. If you are unable to concentrate every day on your studies, it is very tough to clear the NET exam. So they are giving you the choice, alternate. They say if you do this, you will be getting this. So this is what is called as alternative hypothesis. When a hypothesis state is positively, it is alternative hypothesis. That is why they say significant differences are there on the fitness between yogic practitioners as well as the non-yogic practitioner. So they give you the choice, alternate, the normal English term of alternate. Okay. If you do this, for example, if you have a every day, if you go practice walking, your stress level will be under control. And if you don't go for a walking every day, your stress level may not be under control. If you do breathing, your oxygen level will be really high. If you don't do breathing, naturally your energy level will be low. So like this, they'll give you with the alternative. They'll give the choice for you. That is called as alternative hypothesis. For which they have, in the alternative hypothesis itself, they have two categories like alternative directional hypothesis and alternative non-directional hypothesis. Directional hypothesis is nothing but they are directly comparing whatever the alternative they give. They don't simply give, if you do this, if you get the result, and if you don't do this, you will get the result. So they are comparing. If you go for a continuous walk, your stress level will always be under control. If you don't go for a walking, your stress level will not be in a control. Like this, they compare directly. But in alternative non-directional hypothesis, they don't compare anything. They simply say what is happening. For example, if you go for a walking, the person who is going for a walking and the person who is not going for a walking will have a differential stress level. Simply they leave it. So this is an example. Are you okay with this, Sakshi?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Any other doubts you have?
Not yet, ma'am.
Oh, fine. Anybody?
So, ma'am, yeah, can you differentiate between this universal and essential hypothesis?
Yeah. Universal hypothesis is a normal universal statement. Like it's a generalized statement accepted by everybody. Okay. That is called as universal hypothesis. And that is, there is no controversial in the guess. As we have already told you, hypothesis is nothing but an intelligent guess, right? There is no controversy in that guess. People who do this, people who eat less will have a lesser weight, like this. So people who don't go for higher studies will not have a better job profile. Similarly, people who don't do yoga will not be healthier. People who do yoga will be healthier. These are some universal statement, right? A child who is studying will naturally get first rank in the class. Okay, there is this universal accepted guess. That is why universal hypothesis is nothing but, you can hypothesis nothing but an intelligent guess. So you can replace as universal intelligent guess. Okay. So universal accepted things are called as an universal hypothesis. And regarding this, second one, this essential hypothesis, when a hypothesis is accepted at present. So at present, it will be accepted. Okay. Women who do yoga is healthier nowadays. Okay. So women who doesn't may not be there, they doing aerobic or any other type of physical exercises will also be healthier, right? So like this. So the thing that is accepted in the present is called as an existential hypothesis. Now it is existing. Current scenario, it will be accepted. For example, for COVID, you can take now when they continuously practice Surya Namaskara, the infection of COVID will be resolved. So like this, for the current scenario, Surya Namaskara is a better example because the COVID could be resolved with Surya Namaskara. So are you able to follow with me? So universal means that is a constant thing. It will not change forever. But whereas essential hypothesis means only with the present scenario it is being accepted. In future, it may vary.
Okay.
Any other?